Okay, so this is the wrap-up video of the ACME hand cell filer. In this video you're going to see me doing a lot of electrical work to it and some final touches to the filer itself. Ended up working out great. This is her all crated up and ready to go. In the video you'll hear me say that there was a purchaser for it. There was, due to some family health emergencies on their end, they had to back out of the purchase. So this guy is still for sale. So if you're interested, contact me either here on YouTube or on my Instagram, ToddJB1. It is crated up and ready to go. Yeah, so watch the rest of the video if you want to see how she turned out. Thanks. Okay, so I got the wiring plate off, and man, just never trust somebody's electrical work. So this wire, this is the ground wire, it was right onto that screw. But the ground wire goes to nothing, nowhere. So this is a 3-wire, but they've only got it hooked up to a 2-prong. So I'll buy a standard 3-prong replacement. And the other thing that I was noticing, let's see if you can hear this. That is all the electrical cracking with inside of that housing. So it's pretty old, it's pretty beat up. I'm just gonna replace the whole thing. Alrighty, so next up with this ACME is to address this light here. So wanted to, on the stand-all, I took a second to actually show you guys that I replaced one of these internal sockets, but I realized that I didn't show that process at all. So if you've never done this before, it's actually really easy. On a lot of these, and I don't know if you can read this or not, but there's a little spot that says press right here. So it's talking about getting this cap off. Pretty straightforward. So right there it says press. So you should be able to just get a screwdriver right underneath there and then pop that guy right off. And from there you can helps if you take the light bulb out. And you can just pull that guy right out at that point. So let's get the rest of this out. And now we're going to see what we can do about cleaning this guy up. So here's what I got. New internal. If you guys are curious, this is just a Leviton product. 7080M. And then another just Leviton replacement lamp. And we're going to get rid of the plug and actually just tie it right into the motor. And that is a 8-foot cord, which we're going to cut that down probably pretty dramatically. And we're going to try to actually clean that up around it and figure out a way to fasten it a little bit better. We're going to use the rotary tool to get rid of most of that. For a little bit of cleanup, I think that looks a lot better. Here's the tentative plan. We'll see if it works. So inside of here you get a little cardboard sleeve. I went to a local Ace Hardware, bought a replacement nipple and two lock, I'm going to call them locking nuts. I'm not confident that's what they were actually called, but we're going to slip one lock nut between the cardboard sleeve and the outside housing, and then we're going to screw in the nipple, and I might throw some Loctite or something on that one, on that end, to just really get that secured into place, and then we will lock it down here on the other side, at which point the nipple will be able to screw into the original base. Alrighty, so upon investigation, these nuts are actually incredibly loose on these. So I think instead of some Loctite, I'm going to put a little bit of JB Weld, and I think that'll do it. So just enough to fill up some threads. Just get it in there a little bit. And we're going to let that sit overnight to dry. So the other thing that I thought that I'd mention while I'm at it, these lights do have a hot and a neutral, and the way that you tell which wire goes to which, don't know if you can see this or not, but there's going to be a little bit of ridge on one side on one of the wires, and the other is going to be perfectly smooth. Ridge goes to hot, smooth goes to neutral. So just be cognizant of that when you're replacing them. The other thing to note is right here, they give you instructions on how to lace this guy up with what they're calling an underwriter's knot. Never done that before, but shouldn't be too hard to figure out. I guess it's supposed to look like that. And let's find our ridged side, trace it. Cool, there's the ridged. Let's go ahead and get that on there. All right. Now we can just lob that guy off, and then when we're ready, we can feed the whole unit back through this hole, which I won't do until that totally dries and we're ready to do final installation. Alrighty, so here we are back next morning. That feels nice and secure in there. I went ahead and already stuffed that guy down into its home. So we will just Pop the cap back into place. Take the other lock nut, feed it on. And tighten it up. And that is pretty secure. So now we can just feed it through the rest of the arm here. Now that, in my opinion, looks way better. Okay, so we're going to start on the electrical on the ACME. First thing we need to do is get this guy off. So, this here was just what I was concerned about. I don't know if I'm going to have a much better solution for this, but again, if you listen, that is some dry wiring. Not a huge fan of that, nor do I feel that is a very safe option here for us. So, let's see what we can do about improving this. Alright, after I get all the electrical tape off, again, yeah, this stuff is just splitting and breaking and disintegrating in my hand. Switch still feels strong, so we'll reuse that. And then we will just get some new wire on it. Okay, so got some replacement here that is much more flexible, still in good condition. And I think that we're probably going to go with a similar philosophy to what they did, but I'll show you the difference in just a minute. Alright, so here's the primary difference of what I'm going to do. So the way this was previously hooked up was they had this lead and that lead, and they taped it, which is great, but then they had the base of it sticking out down there. So I am going to rehook mine back up, and I'm going to have the base of it up here, so that the tape is totally encompassing the whole thing. And typically I would like to actually put some sort of bracket on the back end of that to hold this wire in place, but don't really want to drill any holes to do that, nor do I want to take the whole thing apart to be able to make that happen, and I don't think that it actually really needs it. So that's the plan. I'm going to cut this one just a little bit shorter. Okay, so should be able to bend that some. Should be able to bend that some. And now that we've got that in a little bit better of a location, Alright, so now, like I said, our actual outside sheathing of the wire is supported in there, and we're not exposing any of the individual wires on the inside. So let's see if we can actually get this to fit back in here now. Well, I was able to pop it out. I don't think I'm going to be able to pop it back in without can you see, loosening those back bolts. So let's do that. Alright, I got those back bolts loosened up. That gives me enough wiggle room to get this guy back into place now. So now, and a little hard to see. I don't know if we're gonna get it to focus. You can see back here that now our wire is fully supported. Alright, so for whatever reason I like to put the plug on the wire that I'm going to use before I connect it to the motor. It absolutely doesn't matter. It's just personal preference. I also came across this plug. It's a Leviton product. I really like this guy because it has more of a vintage look to it than some of the newer ones. I've never used this guy before, so we can see if we can get it open and make it work here. It says that you need to stick a screwdriver in both of these prongs at the same time to pry it open. So let's see if that works. Okay, there you go. That's a pretty rubbery piece, so I think that that'll go back to its form pretty well after we get it on. So what we've got here as far as wire is some new 12 gauge SJ00W. Really like this stuff because it's not too thick, has good insulation properties, and it's pretty resistant to most shop-based issues like chemicals and whatnot. So let's go ahead and get some of this stripped. And when you're stripping for the plug, you know, always make sure that you're only doing enough so that you still are able to clamp down onto it. So loosening up the plug's clamp. And little tip, I do this. I stick it through this side before I trim these pieces, because sometimes it can be a little pain in the butt if you're trying to jam that through and you have loose, you've got loose wires. So, alright, with a little more dinking around with it off camera, I was able to get it in there, and like a twisting action was what got me to where I wanted to go. So we're gonna tighten this back up. Cool. Nice secure fit there. So from here, and this can frankly be sometimes a little cumbersome trying to get all this stuff fit in here and crammed in appropriately. We will try to get these on. Your gold one is always your hot. Alright, try to do the same thing over here. Alright, all that stuff's in there, pretty close. But let's see if we can cram it back in the spot. Cool. There's a plug. Okay, we're going to change plans just a little bit. So I was going to just do the electrical with the motor in place as it is, but I realized that I didn't want to bend over like that or be crammed in that location. And I also realized if I'm making videos of this, you wouldn't be able to see a danged thing that I was doing except for my big meat-fisted hands in the way. So instead, we're going to yank the motor off. We're going to take this guy back off. We're going to take that guy off, and we're just going to assemble it all on the bench and then put it all back together. But it's good that we did this anyway, because now I can get an idea as to where I want my wiring, how long I want my wiring, and where I want things to stop. So, you know, I've got this guy looped, and as we had mentioned earlier, they had this originally coming down around the bottom of the machine. So this way, it's a little cleaner and out of the way. This wire was originally coming out here. Let me show you. So they originally had it facing this way, and then the wire was tightly pulling right against this arm, which actuates up and down. And then they had it pulling all the way underneath here and pulling tight up underneath the motor as well. So instead, I just turned the bracket around and ran it straight down that way, and then ran it underneath this bracket, and we'll be taking it in right here on the top. And then the wire to plug into the wall they had coming out of the top, and we'll have it coming out of the bottom. So let's get this guy yanked off, and that guy yanked off, and the motor yanked off, and then we'll get it all over the bench, and we'll get it put back together after I figure out exactly where I want these exiting the motor, and I'll make a note of that. Alrighty, so I've got this set up in the vise here just so it's vertical, and I will start in on this guy. So this bracket is in the way. So We'll get that out of the way. Alright, so this set of leads, or line in, I guess, is the neutral line in. So this wire here, kind of hard to see, but this line here is the one that plugs into the wall, so power in. This is the neutral coming into that, and then below here you can also see the neutral lamp light coming into that one as well. So let's start there. So we got those guys off, and what I like to do with this is I like to do one thing at a time so I don't get too confused. So I'm going to set that guy right there, and I'm going to get our got our lamp wire here. This is where we want it exiting. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of room. So it's going to be coming in from the top there. We want it to exit right about there. I'm going to cut it right about here so I have enough to strip and then a little bit to bend around in case I need some extra room. So get that guy in. Now we need the neutral for plug itself. This guy will be coming in from the bottom, remember? So give ourselves some extra space. So it'll be coming in right about there. So let's strip from, let's give ourselves a little bit extra. All right, neutral's done. While we're at it, let's just go ahead and throw some on these guys as well. And now that we have an appropriate plug on this end, we can actually have a functioning ground. Actually, I'm going to hold off on this one. Okay, so now we've got this rat's nest. So this is going to be a pigtail for the hot of the lamp, the line in from the plug here, so that's why I'm not going to actually put a terminal on that one. And this will also be part of my switch. So one end of my switch. So let's get this off here and see if that's right. Oh, look at that. That was done a little bit better than I anticipated it to be. Alright, so other of the lamp, old one. Plug, this is the plug one. And then, as you can see here, one was for the switch, the other end of the switch went down here to this terminal. So by wiring it up this way, the lamp should always have power if it's plugged in, whether the switch is on or not. And then by having these two split, and then looks like they had the black to the lead, so we'll copy this exact same thing since we copied it on hooking it up that way. So we'll do black to the line in, and we'll do white to the pigtail. So tell you what, I like this method that they used, so we'll stick with that same one. Here's our switch, so I'm gonna get to here. Again, just give ourselves a little more than we need. So let's cut it right about there. All right. So you'll notice a ground in this one as well. It's just a 3-wire that I had. We did not put a ground on the switch, which it doesn't need it. So we'll just cut that ground off. This is pretty hard to do with that camera directly above this. I'm kind of looking at this at an angle, so it looks a little weird to you. It's a little weird to me. So we'll just cut this guy off flush right there. Okay. So white is what we want to tie together with this guy and this guy. And before we tape that up, we'll test it here. So the last one that we need is to take this guy off. Alright, so if we've done this correctly, should be able to plug her in. Light should work independently of the motor, and then based upon flipping the switch should work as well. Alright, let's see here. Okay, and then perfect. You can see the light over here working. And then for the ground, there should be a boss on these. There isn't. So we're gonna do a little cheat. Put that one in the cover. Maybe. All right, so get all that tucked away. Take our plate. And before we go, we'll try one more time. So lights on, good. All right. So if all went well, we should be able to get this guy right back up in place, and all the wires should be in a much better setup. So we want to make sure that lamp wire is underneath the bracket. Okay, so the last thing that I think I'm going to do to this guy before I crate it up is try to fix this little dent in the shavings catcher. We're going to use a couple pieces of steel and a clamp. Let's see if we can get that straightened out. Let's see how bad it bounces back. That is way better. Not perfectly straight, but way better. So as I had mentioned in the previous video, I did go ahead and get the proper size V-belt and get that installed and took care of all of the alignment issues there. And I wanted to show you guys how much more quiet this machine is now. I am pretty pleased. I'm not going to show the whole critting process on this guy like I did the Standall. But what I will do is tell you that I am going to disassemble it just a little bit. So a couple things here. I'm just going to break it into a couple pieces. So I'm going to take the vise off. I believe that that is just by taking out these cap bolts. And then the other thing, and the main purpose here, is to reduce the footprint of the crate itself, because that will make the crate a lot larger than it needs to be. And so to remove this rail, I believe the only thing that I need to do is take out that bolt right there, which clamps it down to the column itself. So that's it for the ACME. So I did successfully break down the machine into 3 pieces. I am going to take off this hand wheel though, because I realized it kind of protrudes more than I thought that it would. It's just a matter of taking that nut off, I hope. And there's another nut right back there that you can grip onto it. So should be able to loosen that guy off and pull it right off. Let's see. So yep, a quick 7/16 wrench on there. Pop that guy right off with no issues. So again, the back nut, and then there is a star lock washer, and then a normal lock washer, and the nut on the front. Slides right on and off. And here she is on the crate. I love old, unusable straps for purposes like this. So just bolted it down. Used ratchet straps to secure that guy. Just put that down into the shaft and wrap the cord around it. And then the vise itself, it doesn't have a flat bottom. It has kind of this curved bottom. So I came up with this. These things are designed to hold up conduit, not conduit, your air intake and return registers in the house. So took one across there and then also tightened it down on that side, and it's also pretty snugly on there. So it should easily be able to be thrown back together with just tightening a few bolts. Now, so for some walls and a lid, but I think that is going to be totally it on the ACME. I hope it's enjoyed.